Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Listen, I'm not a narcissist, but I know that the people in my family love seeing photos of me and my family and my kid. And why wouldn't they, right? There's nothing better, no better way to put a smile on your loved one's face than to share a special photo. So this holiday season, give the gift that keeps on giving memories, whether it's for grandparents who adore seeing the grandkids' latest antics, or a friend who loves capturing every moment. The Skylight Frame is the perfect gift to bring joy and connection into any home. It's easy to use. You can set it up effortlessly, do some instant sharing, no app or subscription required. It just takes a minute. It's also got a gift mode. It's the ultimate surprise. You can preload your favorite photos before gifting the Skylight Frame. So they open it up, they can enjoy it immediately. This is better than social media. It's private. You don't have to share it with the world. Also, Skylight is a top-rated brand with over 1 million happy customers and thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get 20% off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's right. To get 20% off your Skylight Frame, just go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's ca.skylightframe.com/hockey.
What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Ryan Downey of the Cupful Ryans. How are you doing this fine Tuesday evening?
I'm doing great, Louis, especially now that I get the chance to come back on the show and talk with you. You know, I'm on a pretty good schedule here. You know, once a month is pretty good, but yeah, I've been looking forward to speaking with you for a couple weeks. And boy, did we really pick a day to do this, because there's a lot going on in the NHL today.
Yeah, I know everyone's going to be really disappointed, because initially we were planning on basically doing a victory lap on some of our really excellent calls. And we'll squeeze a few in there, I think, in a little bit. But there is an awful lot to talk about. Our headlines and injuries section pretty much, consuming itself here. So we're not going to differentiate too much between the two. But oh boy, is there a lot of news to talk about. If this is your first episode, every episode could be someone's first episode. We are Short Shifts, the twice weekly check-in between the Sunday mega episodes of Keeping Karlsson, designed to keep you up to date with fantasy news, takes, and analysis all through the fantasy season. You, of course, can become a patron of Keeping Karlsson at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. And I bring that up because I was told by Kevin, our Cupful coordinator, that our wait list is starting to run kind of low. And that means that people who want to join as patrons can jump in on that wait list. And we will need you at some point in this season. We do lose managers from time to time, and we love to make sure that we always have all of our divisions fully stocked. So a good opportunity to get yourself involved in the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League by taking over an abandoned team, if in fact you'd like to join.
And you too could be here for 6 years after taking over a waitlist team, just like I did back in 2018. You could be starting your cupful journey inauspiciously here. So please come and join us. And I do have to share, Lewis, a real life friend of mine has finally taken a team in the cupful. He was waiting on the waitlist patiently all this year. He's very excited to get started. And I'm excited to, be able to talk cupful with someone in my real life. So let's get that waitlist up, folks.
Outstanding. That's great. I love to hear it. All right. I'm going to throw to you for the first one. We have been waiting for this shoe to drop here. We have our first coach firing of the season. Who is it? Where was it? What do we think is going to happen next?
Yeah, I don't think people are too surprised to hear this. This was a rumor that started on a podcast last week. Jim Montgomery has been fired by the Boston Bruins and replaced by associate coach, now interim head coach Joe Sacco. And as you've written here, top of the line here, bad PDO gets coaches fired. Jeremy Swayman, after missing training camp, has turned the beginning of the season into his own personal training camp with an .880 save percentage. That's not going to be good enough to outscore some or to paper over some of their problems. And if you ask me, I'm not sure that they've fired the right person in Boston. I think if you've been watching the roster construction, you could kind of see this coming for a long time. The regression that this team has been putting off, since Bergeron left, since Krejci left, has finally come to roost now that they don't have two of the best goaltenders in the league covering for them in Swayman and Ullmark. And so once and for all, this Bruins narrative of culture and next man up is probably going to come crumbling down, at least for a little bit. I don't think you can replace guys like Bergeron and Krejci with middle six centers like Lindholm, Zaka, and Coyle and expect them to keep rolling forever. If you're a Bruins fan, or if you're someone who owns, the myriad of, exciting fantasy players in Boston, you have to hope for a few things. I think that Lindholm could potentially get up to a 60-point pace. He's been at points in his career an 80-point player, a 75-point player, a 70-point player, and a 60-point player. Right now, he's kind of a 40-point-ish player. So that should, come up a little bit, I think, especially, with a new lease on life here. You have to hope, I think, that Pasternak maybe goes on a shooting percentage bender. He's not super underperforming his regular targets. Same with Marchment. He's doing okay. He could do a little bit better. Maybe 3 or 4 more points is what he would usually have. But it'll be interesting to see if he can do that coming off of his off-season surgeries. You have Zadorov filling in on the blue line. He might be able to pop off a little bit. McAvoy hopefully should, regress in a positive manner. But it'll be interesting to see how this decision makes. You can't fire the players, and it seems like Cam Neely is not interested in firing Don Sweeney. And so this was the obvious choice. What are your thoughts, Lewis, on how this might impact some of the Bruins players?
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of what I wanted to talk about. I do think just kind of by natural regression to the mean, we are going to see some improvement, and maybe Sacco gets some credit for it. I swear to God, I'm going to call him Joe Sakic here any second now. These stats are from Zelnox, a great patron who pulled them off of Evolving Hockey. But right now, the Bruins expected power play goals for per 60 minutes would be 14th in the league. But their actual goals for per 60 is 31st in the league. So, that should regress somewhere around, the direction of league average. And I think that should help. There was some concern. I think Shams was the first to, or Patty, I think, brought up that, this is a situation where, part of the problem is the power play. And now we're promoting the power play guy to, the interim head job. Again, I don't think it's that they're underperforming. I think it's just an issue where, not like underperforming in terms of accomplishing what they're trying to accomplish. They're just not getting the puck into the net in the way that you would want to see. So yeah, I think Swayman's save percentage regresses some. I think the power play regresses some. I don't know that it's going to be something that is going to wildly increase the value of the players who are actually worth having in Boston. If Sacco is going to do something to really try to shake things up, I would watch game day lines, see what the see what the new combos look like, if there's actually going to be some significant changes, and go from there. I don't pretend to know what is going on inside Joe Sacco's head, so I don't want to make a ton of predictions here. This is very much a wait and see type situation, but I do think there will just be some natural positive regression that'll make Sacco look good, at least in the short term. Your mileage may vary on how much that's really worth. Let's jump over to another really big piece of news. And this was going to be one of my victory laps. Of course, I've been talking about Ovi all season. He has been absolutely outstanding. 20 points in the last 11 games. He took the NHL scoring lead with a hat trick on Sunday and followed it up with 2 goals on Monday. But then he had to leave Monday's game. They're calling it week to week with a lower leg injury. Not great. Ovi is pretty legendary for his durability. He's only missed 59 games in his career. So really a bummer to see that week to week. And of course, with how much he has been contributing to his fantasy managers, scoring, even a week of missing him, I think is really going to hurt in surprising ways. Obviously he has outperformed his ADP, so maybe it won't hurt so bad losing him, because it's not like you're losing your second round pick. You're probably using your 4th or 5th. But still, that's definitely gonna be a drawback. And obviously that's an open spot on both power plays for Washington. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see how things go. But, they were definitely, feeding him all that, he could take, and he's been playing great with Dylan Strome. So very unfortunate that he is out. We don't know a ton about what those lines are going to look like. We're also supposed to get an Ovi update on Wednesday. So check out Game Day Tweets and see what the latest is from the Capitals, or you can search Ovi by name. But we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that, because obviously he is a huge part of whatever fantasy teams he is on. So news about him is going to be really important. Speaking about players who are, seeking other opinions about some medical issues, we got an interesting update on Auston Matthews and whatever he is dealing with. Do you care to give us an update on Matthews and what's going on here with the Leafs?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting situation in Toronto. It's classic Toronto. First, you go from, being kind of secretive about the injury, and then the next thing you hear, your franchise center is halfway across the world in Munich, Germany, seeking a second opinion from a doctor that he has worked with in the past. He is off the continent right now, and it makes sense that they would want to keep this a secret. Certainly, this was a huge news story today here in Toronto, where I am based. Toronto seems to really love to keep the lid on these injuries, whether it's Willie and his migraines last year in the playoffs, or whether it was the beginning of Marner's high ankle sprain last year. Either way, they're really downplaying Matthews' severity of his injury. They're using the light schedule this week. They're only playing Wednesday tomorrow, or today, I guess, when you're listening to this, and Sunday this week. So it makes sense that he would kind of, have the time to get over there and acclimate and get some what is being called body work done while he's over there.
I always love when your star player is being referred to like he's, a car that's being taken apart and put back together. We're hammering out the dents. Put a slick new coat of paint on there and see how it looks.
Exactly. We don't really even know what's going on. It could be his wrist. It could be something else that's going on. Far be it for me to speculate. But Toronto, they're not worried for a reason, because the rest of their team has kind of picked up the slack. Marner, in particular, since Matthews has been out, has been very strong. 4 goals and 6 assists for 10 points in 6 games. And he's been particularly hot since being reunited with Tavares a couple of games ago, winning the shot attempts battle and potting 3 of those goals at even strength. Tavares himself has been getting 4 goals and 2 assists in those 6 games, point per game. Love to see that from the former captain of the Leafs. Nylander, just over a point per game, 3 goals and 4 assists in 6 games. And that is particularly impressive, given that he's been dragging the desiccated corpse of Max Domi around, who has, this entire season has... I think he's mired in the longest pointless streak of his entire career right now, which is a really tough look for him, especially given that he has been playing second line minutes for most of the season. Fortunately, also for the Leafs, they've had some secondary contributions from Bobby McMann and Matthew Nyes in their supporting roles with 3 and 2 goals apiece in that span, with McMahon's 3 goals coming in the last 2 games. Those lines are staying the same for tomorrow, so we will see what happens when they play tomorrow. And finally, the last thing to discuss with Toronto is since Matthews has been out, the power play has come alive, and they are ranked 3rd in the league in that time span at around 35%, with 8 power play goals from Marner, Nylander, Nyes, Riley, and Tavares. So those are the guys you're expecting to see score on the power play. They're all members of that top power play right now. And so Toronto has no reason to be worried right now, except for, hopefully Matthews can, get back healthy from Germany and get back into the lineup sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking again, Lewis, of franchise centers, high up in the lineup who are, going to be missing from their team shortly. We did get the news today that JT Miller will be taking an indefinite leave of absence from the Canucks, and we had some lines posted. So why don't you take us through that particular story?
All right. Well, this is an interesting one. We did get Connor Garland back from baby duty. Maybe the coach was kind of in his ear about, we kind of need you back. We've taken a real hit to our depth here. We do have new lines. So it looks like DeBrusk with Pettersson and Kiefer Sherwood, who has been a really nice streamer lately, obviously hitting up a storm, but he's been contributing some points as well. I think they're like 3 minutes into their game right now, and he's already got 3 hits. So he is definitely helping you in that category, as I'm sure Banger League folks are fully aware. Second line looks like Dakota Joshua, Pius Suter, and Connor Garland, Heinen, Bluger, and Likermaki on the third line, and Baines, Aturati, and Nils Hoglander on the fourth line. Also looking at the power play, not sure how this all ended up getting sorted, because we did have Garland back and he didn't practice on the power play, but at least at practice it was DeBrusk, Suter, Likermaki, Pettersson, and Hughes. And then power play 2 was Roddy, Hronek, Sherwood, Baines, and Brandstrom. I can take a look here and see how things have rolled out. If you have any commentary, I know you were thinking of maybe talking about Likermaki. And I do want to say, at least in terms of depth, Brock Besser is skating, so hopefully his return is on the way. But of course, those concussions can be really tricky.
Yeah, fortunately, Besser is skating. Hopefully he gets 2-3% better every day, and he's back in the lineup shortly. And, we should say we don't know how long Miller will be out. This could be a week. It could be a month. It could be even longer. Right now, he's not part of any kind of player assistance program. It looks to just be a personal situation. Hopefully everything is okay with him and his family. But like you mentioned, these lines look real ugly without him right now. And so, you look for where can you find some upside in this lineup. And the first player I like to talk about usually in this case is, the young call-up who has, a ton of scoring in the AHL. And, he's a highly taunted prospect. We got Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who was brought up last week. I really like Lekkerimäki, so much so, in fact, that I dropped now line 1 winger Kiefer Sherwood instead of him last week. I fortunately didn't pay any price, still won my matchup last week, but I was regretting that move, certainly. And I remember you were not too thrilled that I made that move either. I don't think losing Miller on the power play is really good for anyone. He plays that Gretzky role behind the net as well as almost anyone in the league. He's got great vision from that spot. So I wonder personally if they're going to maybe adjust the strategy on the power play to take advantage of the fact that they have 2 shooters like Lekkerimäki and Pettersson. Maybe those guys end up on the flank shooting more. Maybe Connor Garland goes in behind the net this time with Hughes delivering from the point and then Suter kind of being in the center. I think that would make the most sense from my perspective. But, that would work out only if Lekkerimäki could get on one of those flanks with Pettersson. So I guess we'll see what happens. And the last thing I'll say is that Dakota Joshua on L2 is a downgrade for everyone. And so I kind of feel like Garland might be asked to kind of punch above his weight here. And so to that, I say, poor Garland.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a challenging setup. Not obviously what the Canucks want to be putting out there. And yeah, I mean, I've checked it out, and we haven't seen a power play yet. I thought that perhaps we had, just based on how the scoring went for one of the goals, but we're only like 4 minutes into that game. So it does look like Garland, Suter, and Joshua now, DeBrusk, Pettersson, Sherwood, and Lekkerimäki is with Danton Heinen and Teddy Bluger. So maybe not his ideal position to be out there either. That Pettersson DeBrusk line was the one that was out there for the goal, but it was mostly defense helping out. So it was Hronek, Hughes from Hronek and Pettersson. Let's jump over to a few more quick hits on the other side here. Just want to talk about Jonas Moser. We've got Simon Holmstrom, and just some questions about sort of what the opportunities are going to look like on Long Island. Did you want to jump into a little bit talking about some of these guys here?
Yeah, definitely. This was kind of a vestige from when we'd planned the show before all of this news had happened. And I just wanted to mention personally my personal experience with Jonas Moser, because we talked about him on my last episode here. And this was going to be one of those ones where we, either took a victory lap or admitted wrongdoing. And certainly I'm admitting wrongdoing here with Jonas Moser, who is a player who seemingly exists only to torment me, because I got by his 14-point deluge in the Cupful on the day we recorded my first Short Shifts episode. I then picked him up, and then subsequently he went 10 games without a point. Needless to say, I didn't hold on to him, and neither did any of you probably, and we probably shouldn't talk about him ever again. But a more interesting topic, I think, is what's going on in New York, especially with Anthony Duclair out. We were speculating on that episode about who might get the top-line opportunity with Duclair, and I seem to recall that you thought Simon Holmstrom might have the inside track. Well, I have to say, you weren't right at the time, Lewis, but it turns out all we had to do was wait a few weeks, and suddenly he's featuring on the Islanders' power play, putting up a 60-point pace in November. Now, will it last with him toiling away on the third line with the likes of Cizikas and Engvall? Probably not, but in a deep league or dynasty format, you're probably pretty happy with him this month if you got in on it. The real drivers of the offense since Duclair went down on October 19th have been Kyle Palmieri and Anders Lee. One of those names, not particularly surprising. Palmieri was a popular streamer who was turned into a hold for many last month. He's led the team during that time, point per game in 13 games played with 5 goals and 8 assists. He's certainly not available anywhere in Cupful. He's 100% owned at the time of this recording. But, if you're in one of those shallower leagues, you might be able to grab a Palmieri right now. And if you can't get him, someone who might be available for you is his contemporary on the second line, Anders Lee, who was only 2 assists behind him in the same amount of time and contributing with almost 3 shots on goal per game. The interesting thing about this is that both guys are producing mostly at even strength, since New York's power play setup isn't exactly ideal, with some of their better players being split over the 2 units. I would say keep an eye on game day tweets to see if they eventually go with the Horvat, Nelson, Lee, Palmieri setup, if they decide to load it up. But either way, you're probably pretty happy with these guys if you've picked them up. There is one other interesting Islander who I know you picked up recently. Do you want to share a little bit about JG Pageau?
Yeah. So, Pageau was something that I tossed on there. I'm pretty shallow at center right now, especially with some injuries. Definitely someone who I'm hoping can maybe get into the Lee or Palmieri range. Both those guys have been taken. I'm really glad you brought up Lee, just because he's one of those guys that Elon loves, because he is a shooter. His shot volume is always really nice. So that was a guy who I would have taken before Pageau, certainly. But we have seen Pageau really be successful when given these good opportunities, and he has been a line 1 power play 1 guy. 6 points in 8 games recently, a decent start. So maybe we'll see some action from him tonight. That game with Calgary is about half over, 1-0 Islanders, but Pageau has not factored into the scoring or the shooting as of yet. But yeah, fingers crossed, obviously, for a little bit of streaming action from him, hopefully moving forward. Couple other items of note here, and then we'll have to take a little break here, but we'll be back not long after that. Did want to talk about Vasily Podkolzin. getting an opportunity. Now, this has been, he has spent time certainly in the top six, but now really getting opportunity on a line with Draisaitl and McDavid, at least as the game started. I saw that he had a primary and secondary assist. So, that's probably what you would expect. I imagine Podkolzin is expected to defer to Draisaitl and McDavid unless he has a really open shot there. Any interest in Podkolzin here? Obviously, jumping on him today would have been good to get those 2 points. But what do you think about him? We also saw Edmonton claim Kasperi Kapanen, who might also be a factor in the top six, especially with Arvidsson still out, at least for a while, and with Jeff Skinner not having shown very much at all.
Lewis, I'm going to read you a list of names, and I want you to tell me what you think all of these guys have in common. Are you ready?
I think I know, but yes, I'm ready.
Ty Ratty, Kaylor Yamamoto, Josh Archibald, James Neal, Tyler Ennis, Connor Brown, Dominic Cahoon, Alex Chiasson, Jesse Puljujarvi, Dylan Holloway. What do all these guys have in common? They were all third wheels with McDavid and sometimes Draisaitl in the past 5 years. And what they all have in common is that none of them cleared a 40-point pace in those seasons. And that's only going through the last 5 years of McDavid's career through his prime years. So it's no shot against Podkolzin, no shot against Kapanen. In fact, a lot of you who are listening to this know that I'm a big fan of Jeff Merrick, and he'll be returning to the podcast sphere in December with Daily Faceoff. But he had this to say about Podkolzin recently, that the league is finally finding out about Podkolzin. So you take a look at some of his advanced numbers, and he is driving play, at a really nice clip. He's got 10 expected goals when he's on the ice right now, and so he's doing a lot of good things for whatever line he's on in Edmonton. And so judging by tonight's performance from him, I'd say that would be something that could continue. But, it's something you're going to have to keep an eye on. And just remember that these guys who end up with McDavid and Draisaitl all the time, they don't really kind of stay there for the rest of the season. You brought up Kapanen there. I can tell you with absolute certainty, I do not care about Kasperi Kapanen. He has played with some of the best players in this league in the past, starting his NHL career with Matthews and Tavares and moving on to Crosby and Malkin for a few seasons in Pittsburgh before slumming it in St. Louis the past couple of years. The last time he was remotely productive with one of those guys was in 2018 when he played with Matthews and Patrick Marleau. So those are some great players to play with, if you want to look good. The Penguins, when he was on the ice, frequently lost the Corsi battle, with the goal scoring largely coming from his supremely talented line mates. And if you look really closely at his time in Pittsburgh, he really only had a good 40 games in the 2020 half season, right after COVID, 2020, 2021. 40 games, he had a 16% shooting percentage, which was higher than his 10% career average, and only 11 goals. So he would have probably ended up in a full season as a 20-goal guy. I think probably that peak has passed. And so, I would say, again, keep an eye on game day tweets. If Podkolzin sticks there, and, they need something to work in Edmonton because the offense has been relatively anemic. If he sticks there, that's good. But I think it's more likely that we'll start to see some regression from guys like Arvidsson, Hyman. If Evander Kane eventually comes back, he could probably help. I think the only third wheels that have been remotely close to pause the pod in McDavid's past couple of years are Hyman and Kane. And those guys are, established NHL stars.
Yeah, I'm psyched that we brought up this topic so that we could bring up the names Ty Ratty and Dominic Cahoon here in the year of our Lord 2024. Of course, September heroes. When everyone was, hey, let's put another quarter in that slot machine and see what it spits out for us. You did mention, obviously, Kapanen's time in St. Louis. Just a quick St. Louis item as well. Robert Thomas made his triumphant return. That will be great news, I'm sure, for anyone relying on St. Louis for offense. Braden Shen was finally kind of starting to come around and make something happen a little bit, but he's back down to center number 2. I think Thomas has a secondary assist here in the game against Minnesota. So a nice return for him. Glad to see him back in the game. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, but on the other side, we're going to quickly run through some of our hits and misses, and then a couple surprising hot players. You're listening to Short Shifts.
The 2024-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. You can also pick on a player to score a goal. You can bet on a whole bunch of things. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Stands for the Hockey Podcast Network, for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Watching a hockey game live, enough said, right? It's the best. I love being able to actually see the hit happens, and then you look at your app and you're like, that your player and your fantasy team got the hit that you saw live. It's crazy. You got to go live to experience it, and of course, to go to hockey games, you need to buy tickets, and that's where our friends over at Game Time come in. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm taking a look now. Let's say you're in Montreal. You want to see a Habs game. I'm looking at the Golden Knights against the Canadiens on November 23rd. That looks like it's going to be a fun game. Nick Suzuki against his drafting team. And you just get a really great view. I'm looking at it now of what your options are. Cheapest ticket, $100, all in. You can see how that looks. Pretty good. Kind of far back. I'm sure every ticket is fine. But then, if you want to spend $224, I'm seeing there's a 100 section center ice. Looks incredible, right? So you got to check out the Game Time app. I really like the ability to see how your seat is going to look when you're deciding which tickets you're going to buy. Also, if you're looking for a spur of the moment thing, Game Time has last minute deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. They also have exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time!
Welcome back to Short Shifts. All right, so sort of originally before this huge news dump, we were thinking of, going back and, before Trev and the Accountability Project get their hands on everything, sort of take a look at some of the hits and misses that we've had from some of our calls. We've had to pare down our list here a little bit, but I just wanted to sort of talk about, some of the thinking that went into some of these. I was actually pondering this a little bit when we were talking about Tavares, because I didn't apply to Tavares the sort of thinking that I did to Ovechkin when I was drafting this year, where I wanted to, say, okay, the guys who kind of made me pay last year, I think they're going to do better this year. I should hang in with them. I sort of thought that he was washed, especially because I think Tavares's good games, came at the start of the season, and then he was sort of slumping towards the end. So I had that negative piece still with him. Anyway, just something to sort of think about as you are doing some self-evaluation about how you went into the draft and where you maybe had some hits and misses. But in terms of some of the pickups, I'll start with a miss here, and that was Jordan Eberle. A few weeks ago on the show, I was pretty excited for him. I was saying that was a line that actually was going to produce some offense for Seattle that seemed interesting. You want to be out there with Jared McCann. Obviously, Eberle is injured now, and they're being quite cagey about what it is and when he might be back. But he only had 3 assists in 9 games previous to leaving with that injury, and was averaging fewer than 2 shots a game, despite that line 1, power play 1. I think on that permission to drop the boys on Thursday, basically said, why are you even asking this question? So, Eberle, big miss there. Didn't get what I was looking for, unfortunately. How about one of your hits? Stay positive here.
a hit for me. Staying positive. We don't want to dwell on Eberle, although I will take some of the blame there as well, because I was pretty high on them having at least one good line in Seattle. Over to Matthew Nyes, and anyone who's been paying attention on the Discord knows that I am a bit of a prospect head. My prospectiness gets me in trouble more times than not. Last season, for instance, I kept Logan Cooley way too long into December, and it probably cost me a chance at the playoffs in Cupful. So I went into this year saying I wasn't going to make the same mistake, but I did manage to pick up Matthew Nyes pretty late in the draft. And, in recent times, he's had 6 goals and 3 assists in 13 games with pretty good shot volume, playing a pretty consistent 19 to 20 minutes per night, which is a big uptick from last season. And that time on ice includes some power play one time. As we mentioned earlier in the show, he is really lighting it up on the power play right now. And he's largely credited with helping streamline that power play and getting them back on track, because he gives them a bit of a different look with the big body in front of the net. He allows them to move Nylander down to run his own unit on power play 2, which, he is doing very well and was doing very well prior to Matthews taking his leave of absence. I honestly can't imagine Toronto without him playing on the top line with Matthews and Marner, especially once Matthews gets back. He's playing the Berube way, which is straight north. He's hard-nosed on the forecheck, and he's crushing guys to the tune of almost 3 hits per game. I've been enjoying his 4.5 couple points per game, and you could have too if you took that plunge. But who are we kidding? Leafs fans have had this guy locked up all year.
Oh, yeah.
Over to you to another former Leaf who also plays a very similar type of game.
Yeah, I can make this one pretty quick. The Sunday Mega Show was named after this guy, so I don't need to go too far into Mason Marchment, but 10 points in the last 5 games, including 4 goals on 14 shots. Obviously, a lot of that is coming from the 1 goal, 4 assist game versus Pittsburgh. Half of those points, but still a point a game since then. That second line is hot. In fact, I would say that second line is pretty much the only line for Dallas that is not sort of embarrassing them right now. Obviously, those top liners who went high in the draft, Robertson, Wyatt Johnson, who was on a lot of people's list for a potential breakout, all discussed on the Sunday show. You can check that out. I won't go deep into them, but it has really been a struggle. That second line is the one that is producing. I got to give credit here, even as I am high-fiving myself for last Tuesday on the show with Elizabeth, saying grab Marchment now. Enjoy those Monday, Wednesday games against weak California teams next week. Sagan, I have to sort of take a little bit of a hit on because I was concerned about him. I was worried about this injury that they said he was going to be dragging around all season long, but he and Duchesne are making beautiful music along with Mason Marchment. While Sagan did sit in a back-to-back earlier, Ryan, you did some research on this, which was really nice. There's no back-to-backs for a while for Dallas. Their next back-to-back is January 11th and 12th. So if you had Sagan, I hope you held on to him in spite of my particular concerns. He's been playing nicely, and it seems like that injury will not be as big of a concern as maybe we were worried about. Take us over to Anaheim, where we have some unlikely heroes.
Yeah, we don't have anyone who's performing quite near Matt Duchene's 101-point pace here in Anaheim, but we do have some interesting guys to mention. And I will just lead off by reminding people that we had said, are there any Ducks that are worth holding on to? And I had come up with the idea that Troy Terry was worth holding on to, and I was right. He's had 2.5 shots on goal per game, 4.5 couple points per game, which is courtesy of 3 goals and 5 assists in those 10 games. Some of those games were 4, 5, and 6 shot games as well. So certainly he's had a few games where he has not done a whole lot, but he makes up for it with those excellent games with a typical good off-night schedule. And so I remember our short shifts Thursday compatriots were saying no Ducks are worth holding. I said that there was only one, and where we were all wrong was that Frank Vatrano is also a good hold as a Duck right now, depending on your league scoring, of course. If you're just a straight points league, probably not a good hold for you. But in the Cupful, Frank Vatrano has had 4.75 Cupful points per game, 2 goals, 3 assists, but crushing it in the bash department. That's blocks, shots, and hits, hovering around 4 shots on goal per game, 2.5 hits per game, and slightly less than a block per game. Those are all repeatable for Vatrano with the way he plays. So if somehow he is not rostered and your format rewards bash, Get out there and grab him. The cherry on top would be if he could get out of the finishing basement where he currently resides with guys like Zach Hyman, Brad Marchand, Andrei Svechnikov, Wyatt Johnson, Nuge, and P.L. Dubois. Certainly most of those guys won't be at -3 goals against by the end of the year, but certainly some of those guys will move up. So Frank Vatrano could certainly take a better scoring role on the team.
All right. We'll head over to Philly, another team that sometimes has been struggling with offense, but they have seen some really nice production from one Travis Sanheim. Also got a shout out on the Mega Show. 6 points, 10 shots, 10 blocks in the last 3 games. Over 14 games, he's been playing almost 27 minutes. He's got 12 points. He's been +6, 32 shots, 35 blocked shots. Not giving you necessarily a ton in hits, but those other stats, he's performing very nicely. Those points have been coming in bunches. He had 5 in 4 games in October. Then he had a stretch of 8 games with just 1 assist. But the peripherals are enough that he can maintain value, and he's been playing monster minutes those last 3 games, nothing under 27, including some power play 1 deployment. Obviously, they have not seemed in Philly to figure out their power play quarterback situation quite yet. It's been sort of an open competition, and if anybody can seize it, they may be able to hold on to it for a little while if they can actually be productive. So Sanheim might be that guy. So interesting. Definitely want to keep an eye on him. And he has been a nice little addition with all of these points he's been able to score recently. All right. And then one more we got a miss for you here. We'll end, this section on a little bit of a downer note, but then we've got 2 hot players who should be available in an awful lot of leagues.
Yeah, those hot streaks will certainly warm up these Flames players who are colder than a Calgary winter right now. And we won't spend much time on this, but last time I was on, we were talking about the potential of Sharangovich returning to line 1, power play 1, knocking Connor Zary out of his prime deployment and taking it for himself. And that did happen. But unfortunately for the Flames and Sharangovich, he did nothing with it. He has only 2 goals since his debut on October 26th. And while his 2.5 shots per game are second on the team, nothing is going in for him. So the question was, what could you get for Connor Zary? And so I hope you took some of our advice. There were some pretty good suggestions, if I recall, on that episode. Zary, since Sharangovich's return, his ice time and deployment have been all over the place. He has 1 goal and 1 assist to show for it in 11 games, currently mired in a 5-game pointless streak, and on the 3rd line in this top 9 in Calgary. So they are a mess in Calgary right now offensively, so I would look elsewhere if you want production. Somewhere else you could look is perhaps with the Chicago Blackhawks and Jason Dickinson, who is 2 goals on 2 shots on goal today. I know, very repeatable, with Bedard on his wing. This is the next permutation in the kind of horror show that is the lines on Chicago as Luke Richardson tries to find any combination that will get something going there. Who knows how long this will last? The big topic of discussion since Bedard made his hometown debut this weekend in Vancouver was how he has been so cold. And if you're listening to the podcast, it sounds like the guy has died. He's really just mired in a sophomore slump right now. And so maybe Dickinson is the beneficiary here, right? We've got 2 goals on 2 shots on goal. Certainly this will probably stick around now because it worked. So regression certainly is coming for Bedard, and everything he touches will probably turn back into gold.
Yeah, and he may be due for getting winger treatment here in his position eligibility. He's been so bad at faceoffs. It actually may end up benefiting your team because you'll have a little bit more flexibility. Another widely available guy who is also being productive, Gr8 Leason for the Anaheim Ducks, 7 points in the last 5 games, including 2 goals on 6 shots, at least at the time of I was writing this note here. He's still been playing 15 minutes or less per night. He's been good for some hits. It's hard to see the streak continuing, but he, even a stretch of 5 games over a point per game with anyone on the Anaheim Ducks is impressive enough that it warrants discussion, and certainly a player who is going to be as widely available as Leason could provide you with some opportunities. And obviously you have that generally favorable Anaheim schedule.
I imagine current head coach, emphasis on current head coach, Cronin, is very happy to see this kind of player with all of his peripheral action succeeding offensively. So hopefully he can keep putting him in positions to succeed.
Yeah, really interesting, and certainly we'll keep an eye on him because we want to see how things sort of progress with Gr8 Leason moving forward. All right, well, Ryan, we have covered a ton of information here today. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Thank you, those of us who joined us live. If you enjoyed our show, please consider, as we mentioned at the top, joining the Keeping Karlsson Patreon group, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Super supporters receive ad-free episodes. Patrons can also get this show live on YouTube and enjoy that with us and interact with us during the course of the show. Of course, you can interact with Brian Elon, the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. Check out GameDoyTweets.com to get all the best info from Twitter without having to slog through the rest of it. We can be found at Short Shifts Pod on Blue Sky if you are part of the group that has made the way over there. I've been posting there since draft time, but it really seems like there is some movement in that direction. We've been picking up a lot of followers lately, so check us out over there. And of course, visit the other sites we use to research our episodes: Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Thank you again, Ryan, for joining us. And of course, our intro and outro music created by Pat Roach. Until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.
When you choose to earn your degree online from Southern New Hampshire University, you're saying yes to new opportunities and to new adventures. You're saying yes to something big, something you've always wanted to do. If earning your degree is one of your goals this new year, SNHU can help you get there. With low online tuition, no set class times, and multiple term starts per year, you can set the pace that works for you and save money along the way. Visit snhu.edu today to get started.
With the $5 meal deal at McDonald's, you pick a McDouble or a McChicken, then get a small fry, a small drink, and a 4-piece McNuggets. That's a lot of McDonald's for not a lot of money.
Price and participation may vary. For a limited time only.
Hey everybody, I'm Trevor Sikkema, host of the PFF NFL show, here to tell you what you can find on all of our shows throughout the week. On Mondays, we have the Grade Release Show, where myself and Dalton Wasserman break down every single game that you just saw in the NFL. On Tuesdays, we have the Quarterback Breakdown with Seth Galina. On Wednesdays, we've got the Rookie Review with John Ledyard and the preview for the upcoming week in the NFL. So make sure you are subscribed to the PFF NFL show wherever you get your podcasts.